Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View Ohio Policy Talk. I'm your host, Anastasia, and with us today, we have a very special guest, Ohio's Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. Mr. Secretary, welcome back. We had you on this podcast about a year ago, and we were hoping to chat with you again about this great opportunity for our Realtor members to earn CE credits for volunteering as poll workers during elections. It looks like this opportunity was so successful in the past that now the Division of Real Estate is in the process of getting this codified for all future elections. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for getting the ball rolling on that and for being here today.
Well, thanks, Anastasia. And yeah, this is an idea that grew out of the rough experience that everybody had in 2020. We needed to make sure we had enough poll workers, and so we started getting creative about this. It started with the lawyers, actually. Lawyers for Liberty, they called it, where lawyers could get CLE credits, and then the Ohio Realtors were next to join us, and CPAs and librarians and a whole variety of different professions. I think this is not only a great chance to earn some continuing education credits, but it's also an opportunity to really learn how elections work. I mean, let's be honest. I think most of us could probably tell you all the rules of the game of football. I was explaining it to my daughter during the Super Bowl a couple months ago. You know, why do they do this? Why do they do that? All of us can sort of do that, but most people can't tell you the rules of how do elections run. And obviously we all love football, but I think elections are a little bit more important. So not only a chance to get some continuing ed credits, but to really become a legit expert on how elections work and earn a little bit of money on the side as well.
Yeah, I mean, you learn by doing, so it's such a great learning experience. So we wanted to dive into that today and learn a bit more about the work that you do and how realtors can take advantage of this opportunity. We're also joined today by our Ohio Realtors Assistant Vice President of Government Affairs, Andrew Huffman. Andrew, great to have you here.
Anastasia, I really appreciate it. And Mr. Secretary, I'll start off with the first question. You know, I know you and I have been able to work together for a number of years now, but some of our listeners may not know your background and your history in public service and elections. So can you start off before we dive into the CE credits, but just give a background about your political history, your involvement, and what led you to the Secretary of State?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And you're right. It goes back to the halls of the state capitol for you and I when I was a brand new state senator and you were doing government affairs work at that time, and a lot of fun. So for me, it all started in Akron, Ohio. I had a wonderful experience growing up of being mentored by my Boy Scout leader, who was a World War II veteran. And I remember hearing stories around the campfire at Camp Manitowoc in Peninsula, Ohio, about liberating a concentration camp and being part of the Normandy invasion. And I remember thinking, my God, Bill Miller lived a life bigger than himself, served a cause greater than himself, and was my hero. So I knew what I wanted to do. I enlisted in the Army at 18, left for basic training, had a great time, traveled all around the world with my best friends, and did a number of active duty years. And I still serve as a reservist, as a Green Beret. I'm kind of the old Green Beret at 45 years old, but I as long as they'll keep me, I'll keep doing it. But when my active duty time was up, I started at Ohio State, earned a business degree as a non-traditional student. I was like 28 years old, too old to join a fraternity. I stumbled into politics kind of by accident because my social circle, the people that I hung out with on campus, were people that worked on political campaigns. And for me, it connected me with something that, well, it really lit a spark for me because I knew it was a chance to continue serving, a chance to give back, maybe leave this place a little bit better than I found it. And so when I graduated from Ohio State, I had that crossroads moment of here's this business degree. And of course, you know, Lauren probably would have preferred that I went out into the private sector and earn a good living in business. But my heart was telling me to move back home to Akron and run for the state Senate. I did that. I won a really unlikely election victory. I was running as a Republican in a very blue district, but surprised some folks and won that. And served 8 years in the state Senate, built a reputation as the go-to guy on election issues, among other things. I chaired the Transportation Committee. I was the vice chair of the Energy and Public Utilities Committee, worked a lot on streamlining government, just getting regulations and rules and red tape and nonsense out of the way. That was kind of one of my real passions as a state legislator. But yeah, I was the guy that worked on a lot of election issues. And so I was kind of the natural choice to replace then Secretary, now Senator John Husted at the time. He was running for governor and then eventually lieutenant governor. So it's been a great ride. I'll tell you, the last 6 years as Secretary of State, we've made a real difference for Ohio. Proud of the work that not just that I've done, but that our team has done, and that extends to all 88 county boards of elections. We've truly made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. You don't have to pick either convenience or security. We have both. Ohio is unquestionably one of the most convenient states in the country to cast a ballot. 4 weeks of early voting, evening hours, weekend hours, 4 weeks of absentee voting where you can vote from your own kitchen table and do your research right there on your laptop and mail in your ballot. And then, of course, Election Day from 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. But we also make it hard to cheat. We take the dead people off the rolls. We make sure that only American citizens can register to vote. We check IDs. That's, that shouldn't be controversial. It's pretty common sense, and most Ohioans agree with that. So we've really emerged as America's gold standard in elections. And, well, we could use Ohio Realtors to help us make sure that Election Day experience is a smooth one for millions of our fellow Ohioans.
Well, that's incredible. And it is always so interesting to hear about the path that leads to public service and the wide range of responsibilities that your office handles. And speaking of elections, I mean, they take so much work behind the scenes to run smoothly, and poll workers play a huge role in that. Can you kind of walk us through some of the key roles someone might have if they sign up to be a poll worker and what is expected of them?
Yeah, and we tend to call them poll workers because that's kind of the common lingo, but officially they're called Ohio election officials. They are actually officials that are responsible for making sure that voting location is run correctly. You're usually accompanied by the person that's called the VLM, the voting location manager. That's somebody that probably has years and years of experience doing this. That's the manager for that voting location. So don't feel intimidated. If you're thinking about signing up for the first time, you'll have some folks around you that'll be there to help you. You get trained, of course. They give you about 3 hours of training. They schedule that at convenient times, usually evening hours and weekend hours. The county board of elections, whatever county you live in, will have that training for you. They'll pay you for the training hours, those 3 hours of training. But then on election day, responsibilities can vary. You could be the person that's helping manage the line, that makes sure that if there is a line, that people know that, hey, you should be up at the table in a few minutes, or asking if people have questions. You could be the person that's running that check-in table, that's checking the ID, that's verifying the signature, that's making sure that person is who they say they are and get them signed in to that voting location. You could be the person that will then escort the voter from the check-in table over to their voting machine and answer any questions they have about how to put the paper in there and make your choices and then print it out. Or if you're a county which votes by bubbling in the ovals, answer questions that folks have. You could be the person that helps show the voter where to put their ballot in the ballot box, officially cast their vote. Or maybe just the person at the door handing out the I voted stickers, which are ubiquitous. Of course, we're all a bunch of grown-ups conducting our important civic responsibilities, but we want that sticker, and it's important, and people enjoy that part of the experience as well. So there's a lot of different things to do on Election Day.
Yeah, there are so many moving parts. And I know that when I go to vote, I see all of the people you mentioned doing all of those different things. And the I voted sticker, I mean, very important. Love it. So for our members, can you tell us how real estate licensees are able to earn CE credits by serving as poll workers and or elections officials, and what they would need to do to qualify?
Yeah, so if you sign up at our website, voteohio.gov/defenddemocracy, the next step is you'll be contacted by your county board of elections. They'll schedule you for training. Come in, successfully complete the training. I don't think you have to worry about that. If you can pass the test to be a realtor, you'll be able to pass the test to be a poll worker, but they'll give you the training that you need to be successful with that. And then they'll schedule you to work at a voting location in your county. Once you do that, you'll have the documentation from the county board of elections that proves that you did the work. You'll have to turn that in to the accrediting agency that will award those continuing education credits and would refer you. I bet you all at the Ohio Realtors are probably better equipped to help those members if they have any specific questions about how to get their CE credits once they've completed the work of being an election official.
Definitely. And just to clarify for our listeners, this would be 3 CE credit hours in core law for any real estate licensee who serves as an election official in an election. So it's a great opportunity, not just for earning credits, but also playing a direct role in the election process. I mean, it's really incredible. And like you mentioned, it's a great learning opportunity. So, Mr. Secretary, what deadlines should people be aware of for signing up as a poll worker? And are there any other important election-related deadlines to keep in mind?
Well, believe it or not, early voting for overseas and military voters is already underway, started last week. So for those that are studying overseas or serving overseas, the May 6th election has already started. Of course, 30 days, 4 weeks before the election is when early voting begins. And the day before that is when the cutoff is for voter registration. So we're talking about April 7th. And that's the cutoff for early for voter registration. In the beginning of early voting would be the next day, and then of course election day is May 6th. Now, one thing to remember too is that that November general election is right around the corner. We're always working to prepare for the next election. We've got at least 2 elections a year: the primary in the spring and the general in the fall. And so if you're not available for the May 6th primary, maybe consider helping us this November for the general election. You will also be able to get those continuing ed credits at that point as well. But the bottom line is, if you want to sign up to be an election official, please do so right away. The boards of elections are actively recruiting those poll workers right now. They're trying to fill their quota and schedule those training sessions. They try to get those training sessions done a couple weeks before election day, so they're not rushing to do that at the last minute. So now is the time to go to voteohio.gov/defenddemocracy, voteohio.gov/defenddemocracy, or just call your county board of elections or 877-SOS-OHIO. That's our hotline if you have any questions, and we'll get you signed up to be a poll worker, get you trained and ready to go.
Well, Mr. Secretary, one last question. Serving as an election official is a great way to get involved, but there's other ways that I've talked to your staff about of how our members could be active participants or support the election process. What are some of those other ways that our members could get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew, before I get to that, just a couple more things about thinking about being a poll worker. Again, we told you about getting paid. We told you it's actually a lot of fun, especially if you have a friend that comes and does it with you. Maybe you get a few folks together from your office or from your friend circle that sign up to be poll workers. It's a great learning experience. It really is fulfilling when you go home on election night after that really long day and you pour a glass of wine or a beer or whatever you prefer and kick your feet up and watch those election results scrolling across your television screen. And you know that you were part of the team that once again delivered a free and fair election for the people of Ohio. So a lot of good reasons to do it. And by the way, if you've got a young Ohioan in your house, maybe a 17-year-old, 17-year-olds can be poll workers in Ohio. We call that youth at the booth. So if you got a high school student, a child or grandchild, consider bringing them into the fun. Great thing for them to put on a college application, by the way, that they served as an election official before they were even old enough to be a voter. So think about that. But Andrew, to get to your question, what realtors do for Ohio already is tremendous. Access to good, affordable housing, a place to do business is so important. And you all are on the front lines of that. So many realtors are themselves small business owners. They are themselves entrepreneurs. They're helping other entrepreneurs. They're really at the forefront of economic growth in our state. And so I want to say thank you for all of that. Here's something to consider. Help people get registered to vote. You probably have a checklist that you give to your clients when they move into a new place or move out of an old place. Consider adding to that checklist voter registration. Now, here's one that nobody thinks of. When you move out of state, you're actually supposed to withdraw your voter registration here in Ohio, and there's a simple form to do that. Instead of waiting for us to mail you a bunch of things and all of that, just go ahead and proactively, for those out-of-state movers, remind them that they should fill out the form available on our website, voteohio.gov, to withdraw their voter registration in Ohio so they can get registered in their new state. And then remind them wherever you're moving, certainly in Ohio, all you got to do is go to voteohio.gov as long as you're over 18 and a U.S. citizen and get registered to vote. So make voter registration part of your pre-move or moving checklist. And again, consider talking to your associates and employees about the importance of being a poll worker. You hopefully, as a realtor, are mentoring others maybe that are coming up in the profession. Somebody took the time to talk to us when we were young and encourage us to be a voter. I've always been really impressed by the level of engagement that Ohio realtors have with their elected officials. And I remember when I served in the state Senate, they said that, we're not D's, we're not R's, we're members of the Realtor Party, and we're there to support people that care about our industry and are going to help us make sure that we've got good laws and rules in place to encourage the growth of the industry here in Ohio. So consider making sure to talk to those young realtors coming up in the profession about the importance of being an active voter, and not just every 4 years. Presidential elections are great. I get it. We all, especially as a reservist in the military, we all care about who's going to live in the White House. But what probably matters more to your clients and to your own livelihood is not who lives in the White House, but who works at the courthouse, at the schoolhouse, at the state house, at City Hall. And those are the elections that happen not just every 4 years, but really twice a year. So don't miss any elections.
Yeah, that is so important to encourage others to vote and to get involved in the election. And especially what you said about realtors making sure that their clients are registering to vote when they move to new communities. So that is so important. So I want to thank you, Secretary LaRose, for joining us today on this special edition of Policy Talks. It's been so great to chat with you and learn a bit more about our elections and the key role that poll workers play in them. There's so much that goes into making sure that our elections are a success. So thank you for joining and sharing a bit about this exciting opportunity for our members.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. And thanks for the work that Ohio Realtors do. And I'll see you at the polls on Election Day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.